Hello again, everyone. Today I am here to do a little unboxing of this new Esterbrook fountain pen. It is one of the new, I think it's the Tropical series in the Junior pen. This is the Junior Paradise and Paradise, that's what it is, not Tropical. And this is the Orange Sunset. So let's go ahead and get in here and open this up. And once I've opened this up, I'm also going to show you how I swap out nibs for nib units that can be easily swapped by just unscrewing them. And then in a future video, I'm going to show you how to swap out just nibs as opposed to the whole nib unit. So stay tuned for that. All right, well, let's get in here. So this is a really beautiful little box. I like the boxes that Esterbrook pens come in. They're really kind of pretty, and when you open them, you get this little dealie, so it's kind of easy to get out. That is a beautiful pen, I must say. Check that out. It's really pretty. I had a hard time deciding which one of these pens to get because all of the colors were really pretty. I already have a dark blue one in this model, and I really, really love it a lot. It feels really, really comfortable in my hand. And my only lament really was that it didn't come in a variety of colors, and now there are 3 new special edition colors. In addition to this orange, which I chose because I thought it was the prettiest of the 3 personally. But there's also a light blue, there is a yellow, and then they all have different coordinating finials here, so that's kind of nice. And I really liked that this has blue on the finial, because actually one of my favorite color combinations is blue and orange, because I really like how they contrast with each other. So here we go. Okay, let me see what else is in the box before I go into some of that. Let's see. So this has the warranty, and it just has some information about Esterbrook. And then we have a cartridge in here, but I rarely use the cartridge, so I'm just going to put that in here. There should be a converter in the body of this pen, and I have an ink selected over here as well, which I'll show you in a minute. So the nib that I got right out of the box is an extra fine. And it actually has a pretty logo, and Esterbrook nibs are actually really nice. I don't have an issue with them. Well, that's not entirely true. One issue that I have had with them is out of the box. Sometimes they are a little rough, and I prefer to smooth them a little bit, but that's not really the reason why I'm swapping out this nib. The reason why I'm swapping out this nib is because I got a custom nib from Pen Realm, which I'll show you here in a minute as well. But let's make sure we have that converter in here. Yep, there it is. And I don't think that you can eyedropper these because they do have metal pieces on the inside, so you really have to use that converter. But what's nice about this is even though it's a pocket pen, it holds a full-size converter, and it really takes advantage of this whole piece in here to fit that converter. But it's really nice. The resin that's used here is a little bit transparent, so you can see the converter in there just a little bit, but this is such a pretty color. I really do love this. One of the reasons why I really like these pocket pens is I love this little divot here. It feels so comfortable in my hand with writing, because normally I am not a fan of smaller pocket pens. I prefer larger pens, but I do have plenty of pocket pens, but they vary in how comfortable I think they are. And this is a really, really comfortable one. I have carried this around as part of my wallet for a long time, the blue one that I have. And it's worked really, really well. Sometimes I've just included it with my bullet journal, but it's a really, really nice pen. It feels really comfortable in my hand. So let's go ahead and get to nib swapping so that I can show you how to do that. So the nib that I got is this one. So let me see if I can zoom in a little bit, get in there. So this is from Pen Realm, and with Pen Realm you can order nibs with specialty grinds separate from pens, so that's kind of nice. I'm not sure if you can also send in your pen. You might be able to, but I would check on that on the website. You know, I could send in pens to get ground instead of swapping out nibs, but you know, once you add shipping both ways and that sort of thing, it kind of adds up to the price of a nib just if it's a steel nib, it kind of adds up to that price anyway. So I just end up ordering nibs from places like Pen Realm and then swapping them out. And with pens like this, it's really easy because, before I do that, this is an imperial nib that I have in this little container here. So, and it's a size 5 because that's what size this nib is. And this is a Jowo Nib that Esterbrook uses. And the housing and screw-in ability is the same for Jowo and their branded nibs. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, and I did want to mention, I mentioned this before, but the Pen Realm custom nibs really are great. I have not had a dud in the bunch. They're all really, really great. So let's go ahead and prepare this pen for receiving the new nib first. So what I like to do, you don't have to do this, but it's much easier if you do. I take out the converter because often that converter is seated into the bottom of this nib unit. So then I just hold this like so and just screw out. It's really, really super easy. This, there's any nib unit that is a Jowo nib unit that is part of a pen where it can be unscrewed. Sometimes they glue them in. So, but most pens that have Jowo nib units can be screwed out like this, both size 6 and size 5. So I'll show you that again. It's really super easy. I'll just put it back in there. You just take it right out, just screw it right out. And there you go. And I will save this whole nib unit to put on another size 5 pen. And you can actually later on pull out the nib itself if you just want to put the nib in a different pen where you don't have the compatible nib unit. But like I said, I'm going to show you that in a future video, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so I'm going to put that other nib off to the side here, and let's go ahead and get out our new nib, which is wrapped up nicely in this little container here. Put that off to the side. So I'll compare the two here. So as you can see, it's a little bit of a different shape, but it's not super different. I think this Esterbrook is maybe a little bit narrower, or at least it looks narrower. Sometimes it's really hard to tell because of the way the light reflects and that sort of thing. But these are the same size. They're both size 5. And as you can see, the nib unit itself is the same. They are the same. Okay, so I'm going to screw this new one in here. And again, super easy. Just goes in really, really easy. You don't want to over tighten because you could crack the housing, the nib housing. So I just put it in there basically finger tight, but not too tight. And then I'm go ahead and put the converter back in, and then you can just put the pen back together. And sometimes if you are putting pens or putting nibs in different pens that have a different nib height, I actually think this one is sticking up a little bit more than this one, so it's not going to be a problem. But if you're putting a new nib in a pen that is a little taller than the nib you already have in there, you need to be really, really careful when you close the cap, because the cap, there's only so much room in here to accommodate a nib. So you really don't want to put the cap on and then have it smush and bend the top of the nib. Guess how I know that? I have done that before. So please be careful with that. But this is not going to be any problem because it is, if nothing else, it's either the same size or shorter. So there you go. And that's your new pen. So let's go ahead and ink this up. And it's going to be really hard to tell on this small one. So this is a medium imperial nib, and the imperial nib is slightly ground to an angle here on the top so that you can get essentially the feel of a round nib, but you'll still get a little bit of line variation. And I'll see if this is the same as the other imperial nib that I have. I have another imperial nib on another pen that's a size 6, and you can actually flip it over and write a thicker line with the top of it. So let's see if that actually works on this one. So I'm going to put this nib aside now and keep it in my little stash of nibs. I definitely swap them out and use them quite frequently, so it's not an issue. The ink that I've chosen today is TWSBI Orange, which I thought would be a nice match for this. It might be a little darker than the pen, but I don't like super light inks, so I think it'll be okay. And the way that I've actually been filling my converter pens lately is taking the converter out and filling the converter itself, because I got kind of tired of cleaning out all the little crevices in the nib itself. You know, you can do it either way. You can leave it attached, fill it that way, and just clean it off. But this way I find a little less messy. Let's see. So in order to fill it, you need to put the plunger all the way down and put it in the bottle and screw to fill up. And that's pretty good fill. I'm going to wipe off the top of that converter there off camera. And then I just put it back in there. Now, if I wasn't going to be writing right away, I probably would just leave this and let the ink go into the feed on its own, and then start writing with it later. But because we are going to write with it right away, I'm going to prime the feed by pushing some of this ink down into the nib unit, and you can actually see some of it bubbling up a little bit here. And you don't want to do this too much, because you don't want the, obviously you don't want the ink to go everywhere. But if you do that a little bit, you'll get the ink down into the nib and feed. And I'm actually going to see, I'm going to do this off camera just a second so that I can get a pretty decent amount of that ink down into the nib. Okay, and usually I do that until I get a little bit of ink that goes down into the nib. And sorry I'm not showing that, but it is a little messy, so I have a paper towel off to the side here that I am using to gauge that. Okay. And sometimes with custom ground nibs, you might want to rinse them out, because there could be some debris in there, but I'm hoping that's not the case here. So see, I've actually put a lot of that ink down into the feed, but let's go ahead and do that. Close this up. We might need to do a little bit of scribbling in order to get that to start running again, but it shouldn't be too long. And then here is my, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit for that. This is my fountain pen testing book that also has some tools for working on fountain pens and that sort of thing. I'm going to put a link to the video where I talk about this current setup. I'm going to put that below. And then in here I have a Tomoe River notebook currently. This is from Naname Cafe Notes, or Naname paper. It's the old Tomoe River paper, so it's very nice, but that's not going to be available forever, as those of us in the know. Okay, so again, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that you can see my writing sample here. Let's see, are we going? Oops, no, it looks like I still need to get that going a little bit. I'm actually going to dip the end in the ink so that I can, and you can do that too instead of priming it by pushing the ink down into the nib. You can just dip it into the ink as well, and that will kind of prime the nib. You know, at the end of the day, is it more work this way than just sticking the whole end of the nib into the bottle? Who knows? But okay, so now we're going. So as you can see, the downstroke is like a regular medium, but side to side, it is a little bit more narrow, even though it is not, it's not flattened on the front. It's only flattened on the back. Let's see, at an angle. I don't know if you can see that. It might be very hard to see. On the website for Pen Realm, they show you the different grinds. So let's see. So this is an Esterbrook Pocket Junior in the, what was it, the Tropical or Paradise? In the Paradise collection. Orange. with a Pen Realm number 5 Imperial nib. Oh, and I realized I did not test out the other side. Yeah, it looks like you can write on the other side, but it's not as prominent. It looks like it's a little bit narrower on this one, and it's not as juicy as the other one. Yes, this is really, I think, just a one-sided nib for the most part, but it's still lovely and I love it. So let's see, and then the ink here is TWSBI Orange is the ink, and then let's do the Quick Brown Fox. All right, so again, you've got just a regular size nib size that way. There's a little bit of line variation. It's a very smooth feeling nib, and then reverse writing. You can do it, but it's a little bit more rough of a feel there. I think this is really mostly a one-sided nib here. All right, so there we go. That's pretty much all I had for you today. Let's go ahead and put that under there so you can see that lovely ink next to that pen there. All right, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, and feel free to subscribe to keep track of future videos on my channel. And I hope to see you next time, but in the meantime, have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.